Kyogo, Maeda and Hatate are three of Celtic's most popular players today. All three men moved directly from Japan to Glasgow and have found major success at Parkhead. However, they weren't the first Japanese players to play for the club, as Celtic's first man from Japan arrived almost 20 years ago. Gordon Strachan took over as Celtic manager in the summer of 2005. Inheriting an ageing squad, he needed to hit the ground running with a big transfer window. Shunsuke Nakamura was playing Serie A at the time and was being played out of position in a deep central midfield role. Linked with clubs in England and Spain, Strachan was shown a video of Nakamura's performance for the Japanese national team in that summer's Confederations Cup against Brazil and was immediately blown away. Celtic managed to land the signature for a minuscule transfer fee of less than £2 million, though the club did also have to pay for Nakamura's image rights as he was a huge star in Japan at the time. Nakamura would, of course, go on to be a massive success for Celtic, making 166 appearances, scoring 34 goals. He won 3 league titles, 2 league cups and a Scottish Cup during his 4-year spell at the club, and also won the Scottish Players Player of the Year award in 2007. It wasn't unusual to find Japanese fans in the stands at Celtic Park during these years. To capitalise on his popularity, Celtic even arranged a tour of Japan in 2008. We'll go into more detail on Nakamura in a future video, but he was such a hit that Celtic decided to look for more talent from the Far East. That led to the arrival of Koki Mizuno in January 2008. Unlike Nakamura, Mizuno had no experience in European football, moving to the club directly from the J-League. At just 22 years old, he was deemed as a signing for the future and placed into the reserve team to help him get used to the different culture of Scottish football. Some fans were sceptical over the signing, theorising that it was an attempt by club CEO Peter Lawwell to continue the commercial success of Nakamura rather than being brought in purely on football and merit. But Mizuno was highly thought of in his homeland and arrived already with 4 full international caps to his name, as well as winning 2 J-League Cups with his former club JF United Chiba, where he was named MVP in 2006. He eventually made his first team debut 10 months after arriving in Scotland and would score an amazing goal during his first start for the club in a 3-0 win away to Falkirk. Sadly though, this was to be his peak in a Celtic jersey. Mizuno never scored again for the club, in total making just 12 first team appearances before moving back to Japan. And for a long time, that was where Celtic's on-field connection with Japan ended. Then, Ange Postecoglou arrived as manager in 2021. Like Strachan before him, Ange arrived at a time when Celtic were in dire need of a successful transfer window. The COVID season had just ended, and Ange needed to make almost an entire squad's worth of signings all at once. The Australian manager had just spent the previous 3 years managing Yokohama F Marinos, where he'd won the J-League in 2019. He knew the league well, and knew the best players from Japan could arrive in Scotland and make a massive impact. He attempted to sign Kaoru Mitoma, however he was already in advanced discussions to join Premier League side Brighton. Perhaps not wanting to over-rely on Ange's belief in Japanese football, the club sanctioned just one arrival from Japan in that summer window. That was the £4.5 million signature of Kyogo Furuhashi. The striker was a player Ange had long since admired when coming up against his side Vissel Kobe, and of course, Kyogo proved to be an instant success in Glasgow. He scored on his debut in Europe and followed that up by scoring a hat-trick in his domestic debut against Dundee. It was clear right away that the top talent from Japan were suited to Celtic, so the club sanctioned another foray into the market in the January 2022 transfer window. 3 further players from Japan arrived, the first being Reo Hatate at a £1.4 million move. Hatate didn't actually turn professional until he was 21 years old, but the cultured midfielder hit the ground running, winning the Man of the Match award on his debut against Hibs, before scoring a double just a few weeks later in a memorable 3-0 victory over Rangers that sent Celtic top of the table for the first time that season. Daizen Maeda was the player Ange knew better than any other. Maeda had played for Ange at Yokohama, and he was always keen to bring in the pressing winger/striker. Again, it was an instant success as Maeda scored just 4 minutes into his debut against Hibs. In addition to that, Celtic also signed Yusuke Ideguchi for just under £1 million from Gamba Osaka. Ideguchi was the wildcard signing. He had an unsuccessful spell in Germany and an unsuccessful time at Leeds already under his belt before arriving at Celtic. Unlike the other names who arrived from Japan in that 2021-22 season, Gucci, as he was affectionately known, failed to make an impact in Glasgow. He suffered a bad injury from a hard tackle in a Scottish Cup game against Alloa and never really recovered. Ideguchi made just 6 appearances for the club before returning to Japanese football, where he has remained ever since. Still, the signings of Kyogo Hatate and Maeda pushed Celtic on to reclaim the Scottish League title in 2022. Once more, Celtic decided to look for further talent from Japan and went back to the market in the January 2023 summer transfer window. Yuki Kobayashi arrived on a 5-year deal, but like Ideguchi, he never really settled in Glasgow. The centre-back made only 7 appearances and in harsh reality failed to impress in any of them. He left the club just 18 months after joining. And rounding out the signings from Japan was Tomoki Iwata, who, just like Daizen Maeda, arrived at first on loan from Yokohama F. Marinos before the loan was made permanent. Iwata was an interesting case. He'd just been named J-League MVP in 2022, so there were high hopes for him. Celtic lacked a physical presence at times in midfield, and Iwata's physique seemed perfect to add strength into the defensive midfield role. Unfortunately for Iwata, Celtic just had too much talent ahead of him in the middle of the park, so he never really made the position his own. He has since moved to Birmingham City, where he's been a standout player in the lower leagues of English football. Things always change in football. Ange Postecoglou left Celtic to manage Spurs, and with that, no further Japanese signings have joined the club. Kyogo Maeda and Hatate currently make up a key part of Brendan Rodgers' side, and Nakamura will be remembered as one of Celtic's all-time fan favourites. 8 players from Japan have played for the club in total, and perhaps more will join in the future. For sure though, since the turn of the millennium, Celtic's relationship with Japan has been a huge success for the club.